Welcome to the Pursuit of Progress podcast, where we dive into the lessons, stories, and strategies from the minds of some of the best coaches and trainers in the industry. And I'm excited to have my man who's also here in South Florida. But if you guys are watching on YouTube, we are via video instead of together, right? But my man, Kashawn Fraser. Kashawn, how you living?
Man, living great, living good. We in sunny South Florida, and it's not raining today, so it's a win.
That's it, man. I love that. And before I give you guys a little bit more detail on Kashawn, first off, I always include some links, especially to connect with our guests here on social and find out more about what they're doing, because I think it's one of the best places to connect and learn from them. And truthfully, that's where I initially connected with Kashawn. The power of the internet, right? Is I've been active inside of Facebook groups, and here we're in South Florida. So the Boca Raton Moms Facebook group, which is like crazy busy, right?
Life
Crazy
hack.
busy. Life hack. I'm just telling you. But I say this because I think this stuff is real relevant for you guys who might be newer coaches and thinking about how you're going to interact and connect with clients. And I've just always had my pulse on what's going on inside these groups. Where are people finding coaches and trainers? And also, how are trainers and coaches responding to these things to try to get clients? Because a lot of people might put in energy and time, but it's not always efficient. Either way, long story short, I've always seen Kashawn's name popping up. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Fitness at your door. What is this? And so I just kept seeing this name pop up. And I'm like, I'm going to start searching this guy a little bit. Right. And again, the power of the internet, got to find out a little bit more on my own, and then the opportunity to connect with him as well. But Kashawn is a former CFL player, lifetime athlete, like many of us who find our way into training and fitness through athletics, which I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that. Also been a personal trainer and a coach for over 12 years. So as we go through the stuff today, guys, just know I'm always bringing you guys guests who have in the trenches experience, right? Like this guy's been training hundreds and thousands of sessions with people over time. And now built a much larger business that's reaching more people. And that now, and you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, Kashawn, founded Fitness at Your Door in around 2020, where you now
Correct.
really help other trainers find success and have created a network and a pathway for trainers not only to build their business, but also to connect with and reach more clients. Talk to me a little bit more, just so we have some good context about like what else Kashawn got going on right now in life and business, Fitness at Your Door. And then I'm going to dive into those early years so we can better understand how you got where you are.
Yeah, so I'll start personally. Extremely blessed. I don't personally train people anymore. I was training for 12 plus years and scaling this business back in 2020. I would say about in end of 2021 going into 22 is when I like said, hey, I'm gonna like work on the business and work on the business, not in the business. So that was a pretty big milestone for me, for somebody who has trained the womb from the tomb. So talking about from kids to chronic illnesses to the
Yeah.
professional athlete to the corporate CEO, and this is really one of the biggest reasons why Fitness at Your Door was created over the time of my extensive experience with clients and keeping them happy and learning what it took to be like an amazing trainer and retain clients. So personally, what's going on with me? I got engaged back in November. So, starting that new chapter of my life
Congrats.
with my lovely fiance. We really feed off each other. She has been a big integral part on like with everything I've done up to this point. And one of the biggest reasons we made Fitness at Your Door as I was, transitioning from my professional football career was to serve more people. I got burnt out as a trainer. I felt like I had so much to give, but I wasn't giving a lot anymore because I was kind of maxed out. And Build a Fitness at Your Door gave me the ability to give everything I learned over those the 12 plus years of my failures and now success, to trainers on teaching them the whole business in the box solution on what it takes to be a good trainer, um, in the business and out the business. So from the marketing to scheduling to how to convert a client, do the assessment, all the kind of minutia that goes into training besides what you want to do, which is actually train the person, right? So that's
All
kind of
all the
where we are.
non-sexy stuff, right?
Right, right. And we've really converted to more of a B2B business because originally we were sending people to people's doors. Now we're sending them to corporate offices. We're even staffing gyms at times. And we're working with a lot of homeowner associations also right now. So there's been a constant growth, and just really excited on how we're able to serve the everyday community and help keep more quality health professionals in the industry.
I love that. And I want to dive into mostly because I know from connecting with you originally and even what you're talking about right now, I know you've got a lot of experience with the private in home training world, which is a very different world than in gym, big box, or even boutique training studios. So you've been training for 12 years, right? Like when in that process, were you always training in home? Like once you started working with clients, or were you in gym first and then you went to more in-home training? Talk to me about that mix and even that transition, like when some of that happened for you.
Yeah, so the journey was long. I always start with the foundation, which was professional sports. Went to college in Central Michigan. Was studying from an exercise science degree. And then when I got out of college, I didn't make the professional football league right away in the NFL. So that was actually very depressing. So I know everybody sees the success piece, but that felt like a failure for me, for somebody who was so talented. And I was like, I've just felt like I didn't get the opportunity. So
Yeah.
going into the gym industry, degree, all the fancy stuff coming from being a collegiate athlete, you think you're gonna get paid, and it's like, no, you're gonna make $6 an hour, and you get what you get, and you don't get upset, right?
That's it.
So,
Love that.
so besides, spending all that time getting a 4-year degree that costs you thousands of dollars in the education piece, which I know you coach so much, having a training academy and everything, that's not always what gets you over the hump. Unfortunately, it gets you far, but that's a piece of the puzzle, right?
For sure.
So when I was in the big box gyms, I kind of seen the fitness industry was broken. So when I seen the fitness industry was broken, when I say that, I mean unsustainable schedules, minimum wage pay, even if you're overqualified or qualified, and people just couldn't show up for themselves, right? Dirty bathrooms, uncomfortable situations for women. We name it all. Subscriptions that nobody goes to. Um, it's kind of how gyms kind of build their reputation. Not all gyms, but at least the
Yeah, yeah,
gyms
yeah.
I started with. That's how it was. So, you know, the first two gyms I worked at, they closed down just because they couldn't really manage the business as well. And every gym owner I seen was living in the gym, and I was like, I love this and I want to do this, but there got to be a better way, right? And then went play, just to fast forward, got the opportunity to play professionally, got, 3 knee surgeries later, uh, on and off that professional career,
Yeah.
always doing the in-house training. And I'll get into a little bit more about my client testimonials, but I had a client named Michael that lost 45 pounds in 90 days. And he changed my life, even though he said I changed his life, right? He said I saved his marriage. He was talking to his kids better. He was hitting all his KPIs, key performance indicators. Like he was just doing, like life was good for him because he got healthy. And he told me, K, this is what he called me, Kashawn. He's like, you're special, and you need, like, more people need to experience this. And he's like, if you never came to me, I would have found the excuse for myself always. Like I would never got this done. And then I started doing the whole door to door thing. And then that whole carousel of getting picked up by a team, getting cut by a team, getting injured, the back and forth of the professional athlete story, living out the bag, etc. I
Yeah.
was always submerged in fitness, but I didn't know how to scale a business because I was chasing my dream as a young, a young professional, young man, because you only get such a short, lifespan as a professional athlete. So
Yeah, the window's tight.
yeah, so that was kind of the journey. And I know you're probably asking me more questions of how we end up kind of getting started, but that was the journey of discovering fitness at your door before it even was fitness at your door.
Yeah. And when you, especially with the in-home, because I think, not only like, came across you in 2020 or so with like the start of your business, obviously like in-home training was not new to you. Moving to South Florida for me in like 2010, started to interact with some others in the area who were not just doing it themselves at a high level, but starting to manage other trainers going in home.
Mhm.
And obviously, regionally, like South Florida is a great place for training. Let's be honest, right? You're going to make a career in South Florida. It's great. And in home training, I think has always been great and been popular. And then obviously COVID hit and boosh, people who weren't even doing in-home training, all of a sudden, that's all they were doing. And
Right.
maybe they were liking it more, right? Maybe they were taking home more money. They weren't paying the gym for rent.
Right.
You know. So tell me this though. Let's talk about that. Like, especially when you were getting busier with training, or, I even know from talking to you, you're coming back from playing football and it's hard to maintain clients. You're probably getting clients again. How were you finding clients for
Mhm.
the in-home training, right? Because you're not in front of a couple thousand people who have a gym membership, like they're in their home. So how were you finding people back when you were really starting to get busy with that?
Man, it's so crazy you say that because I would say God because Lord knows I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I can tell you where I
I love
started.
that. I love that.
I can tell you where I started. I was the gym. I was the trying to be that social media influencer, putting the workout out in the park, putting the quote over it,
Yeah, yeah,
thinking
yeah.
thinking thinking that would be the outreach. When Craigslist was a thing, that was one of my biggest ways to get clients, which is crazy to me. I met my first $1 million client on Craigslist, right? A
Yep.
millionaire client, right? Um, kids at the park or when they're like soccer games, football games, whatever. I would literally walk around. I went to Vistaprint, had my cards. It's nothing like high touch point, right? This is a relationship type business. I would
Get some
walk around.
face-to-face time.
Face-to-face time. I know everybody wants to make it easy and say, hey, post, post, post. If you don't got the money to do that, you got to get on your legs and you got to go door to door. So I would literally go to the parks, pass all my cards out, go around, always on the Facebook groups, putting that out there, like, just posting like, hey, I'm a trainer in the area. If you want to come out, make it free. I wanted to train people so bad. I was like, hey, come at this time. You get to train for free, hoping that I can get some prospects.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you show them the value, then you all and then you offer the upsell, as you would say. But those were some of the basic foundational stuff that I did. And networking. Networking will never fail. If you're a beginner trainer and they always say your network is your net worth. It's true. Like, we're in a business of relationships. Business is relationships. So the more you're seeing, the more you're doing community work. Just it's not always you're trying to get the business. It's the fact that you're doing something to help others. Because we know in the world you help others and you will receive too. So just being out there, being in the community and finding ways to just give back. And like I said, God made room for my gift. So if you're out there just trying to do good to others, it's gonna come back your way. Besides all the fancy, social media piece of it, get out there and network.
Love that.
If you're not in a BNI, if you're not in a chamber of commerce, if you're not in some type of social network where you can just have high touch points and build relationships with the same people over and over again, not going to the network and throwing your cards out like a stripper, like like actually building
Poo, poo, poo,
relationships.
poo, poo, poo.
Yeah, like, hey, you get a card, you get a card, you get a card. Like, actually going out there and building relationships over time, you will see how your business will explode.
So I like that. I mean, I'm with you. I think that it's very easy for people to want to lean into the online, and we can get into online training, and that's a whole different conversation. But even just getting people, and honestly, I find that's why those who get into training who might not be 18, 19, 20, right?
Right,
They've had a little life experience, tend to do better faster because they already have that. Like they're more
right,
comfortable with this.
right.
But with the in-home, talk to me about some of the downsides, right? Because even like, you understand what we do with the Axiom Academy, we're getting people into the industry and then they're trying to figure out like, where do I want to start? And especially the starting point, your first couple of years,
Mhm.
what are you missing out on if you go right into in-home, right? Like, let's talk a little bit about the other side. Obviously, there's some positives, but
Right,
there's some
right.
challenges and some negatives. So what are you missing out on? And what are going to be the biggest struggles for someone who's listening, who's like, I just got certified. I want to start training clients in home tomorrow.
I think soft skills, social skills. I think you need to be in the gym. You need to not somebody. This is how I started. So the one thing I can say the upside about the gym, they didn't pay me hourly. They made me grab people off the floor. So soft skills and social skills, that's all we teach our trainers because clients don't care how much you know until they know you care. So I think one of the biggest things that the gym industry taught me and just being out there as far as networking is the soft skills you learn, forcing yourself to get uncomfortable, forcing yourself to go show somebody exercise and walk away and be like, hey, if you ever need help, not trying to hard sell them, but just those things that are like they're intangible, you know?
Yeah.
So if you go to the like in the house, you're kind of putting yourself like a turtle in the shell because it's like you don't really know how to really talk to people and get more people. So how can you promote on social media and be confident about public speaking and do those things if you never had to grab a client, you know, from the floor and talk to different people and have confrontation, right? If somebody doesn't like something, oh, you know, whatever the case may be, right? So
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is the communication piece with being in-home training. Also, not that you're going to have a full gym in home, you have to be very, you know, versatile, but you
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
learn the
Yeah.
craft. You should know how to use the machines. You should know how to you know, the camaraderie and community around being with other veteran trainers and learning the way. I had amazing trainers that like, yeah, I chose a different route, but Marvin the trainer in West Palm, shout out to him. He like he really set a standard like what this looks like, what the grind looked like. Like
Yeah.
he literally we would wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, sit at the gym just to be the first people there. So when people are coming, he's like, this is what training is. Like I know it looks like X, Y, and Z an hour. It's like, no, you got to build a book of business. This is how you build a book. People have to see you, you know. So
Yeah.
I think people, you know, trainers really get caught up a lot of how much money you can get in in-house training, and they forget the steps that it may take to get to that point.
Yeah, and I'll add to that in the sense that I think there's a misconception sometimes for new trainers on like I got to start with one thing, right? And what I'm taking from you, and I already know, the moment we talked the first time, I'm like, all right, Kashawn's a hustler, like he's my people. I know because I know what it takes to be successful in training. And it's also the thread that I see amongst even the others we've had on the podcast so far is that either along the way or in the beginning, like obviously you're committing yourself to whatever you're doing, right? You're giving
Right.
everything you got, but it might mean like maybe it doesn't mean you can't take on any in-home, but like, all right, you get an in-home client or two, but also be in a gym, right? Like
Of
you kind of
course.
have to be doing a lot more in the beginning than
You need to
where
be
you might
learning,
be. Yeah.
always learning, always learning.
Love that. Love that. And I like the shout out. I'm gonna have to go look up Marvin, my man up in West Palm, just
Oh, he's
because
an
now.
OG, 20 plus years in the industry. When you talk about OGs, people know Marvin, trained tons of professional athletes. I had to give him a shout out. He's a mentor of mine, and he's one of the big reasons why I'm the trainer I am today. So, and I wouldn't have
Love that.
never met him or the business side of it or seen things that I liked and I didn't like without having great mentors, you know? So,
Love that, man. Power of mentorship. So, maybe last one kind of on this same little thread
mhm,
is let's talk about like, all right, you've done in-home training, you've done in the gym training. You obviously have a separate type of business now where you're not doing the training, but let's just, for the benefit of our listeners, let's just
right.
say, Kashawn, everything else goes away. Your business is gone. You've
Right.
got to start from the beginning again to get clients and be a trainer. Obviously you had the successful strategies that worked for you in the past. You've got hindsight as 2020, and you also have an industry that's changed since you and I got started.
Very much.
What would you do? What would be your main focus to get as busy as possible with training clients in the next 6 to 12 months?
Next 6 to 12 months, get reviews, get social proof, and blast it everywhere you can. Um, Honestly, the way like you talked about, the way I really started fitness at your door, even though it was a weird time and it was around COVID and people were looking for that solution. Facebook groups. If you're not on every social media posting free content, which they give you the ability to like post all this free content and being consistent on it, or just doing educational seminars, like, hey, come on, just ask me questions as far as like fitness tips, nutritional things. That's what you should be doing. And again, I'm not gonna stray away from this. If you want to grow your fastest, I'm gonna join a network that is either based off of leads or some type of whatever your niche may be. I know we talk about getting into everything, but if this is a sports specific group, you need to be, you know, volunteering for something that's sports specific or whatever the case may be, or a mom's group. First of all, I would say find your niche and submerge yourself into it. Um, so as far as the social media, because when you start there, you're not going to be able to do pay per click and the SEO and have your name show up on all the stuff.
Nah, nah, not for new coaches. Yeah, and
Not for new
honestly, it might
coaches.
might not even be worth it for you.
Right, right. But what you can do is work your butt off, get before and afters, and just keep it in people's face, even if you think people are not looking or not, right? Social proof is everything. I'm not just talking about social media, but showing the tangible skills that you are a great trainer and giving valuable content. That's the way of the world now. It's not like I'm a trainer, I'm a trainer. It's like, what is the value I can give you as a trainer? And then you want to, damn, I'm interested. They practice what they preach. They're very educational. I want to know more about that person, right? And then it doesn't matter what I say about myself. It matters what the people who train with you say about yourself. So I think so many trainers bypass the assessment and program design of actually getting them before and after, actually getting measurements, actually recording your people when they're getting these wins. That's what sells your product, not you. So that's kind of what I would say. I know it sounds very simple, but
Hey,
it's the simple
sim-
things work.
yeah, simple's best. And the only thing I'll add to that too is if you had to choose one setting, meaning that, let's just go through, you've got like private contract gyms, you've got maybe a boutique studio where you're like a W-2, you've got like a large club, like a Lifetime or a UFit or whatever.
Right,
You've got in-home training. Which one would you choose and why? Like, especially with the idea of like, I want to get busiest over time. Which one
right.
would you go with personally?
I personally will go with a boutique gym, higher clientele. You can do more with your time as far as you're getting more money for your time. And I would be slowly transitioning to posting tons of content so I can become that social media influencer. As I'm kind of doing that whole boutique thing, because I'm catering to a higher clientele and I'm building my social presence and my personal brand as I'm doing it. That's the way I would do it
Love it.
if I knew what I was doing back then.
Yeah, yeah, right. If any of us did, it's all like,
Right.
yeah, hindsight, you're like, well, I was doing that pretty good, but I didn't even know at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so talking about more so even like now with your role at Fitness at Your Door, you're obviously, you've created something that's helping other personal trainers find more success. I would imagine in that time, these last 2.5, 3 years, you've been able to have a lot of conversations with new personal trainers and coaches. What's the biggest misconception that new trainers have about what it's going to look like when they first start out, right?
Man, common sense is not common. I could say that as far as that goes. But with new trainers, I think and you're worth what you think you're worth. Your education's worth something. Your I think your training pedigree is worth something as far as whether you're a professional athlete or have fitness accolades or have all the certifications in the book. But at the end of the day, that still doesn't matter, right? Number one, you looking the part, I think is the first part because people want to train with people who look the part. I see so many
Yeah.
trainers who want to
Personal
get in
brand.
the industry, but they're not practicing what they preach. So I think that's number one. Um, beside the number one, I still think you need to be educated, even though I see so many trainers not certified nowadays, and they're still getting tons of business because the social media era has gotten so big. If you look like that, you can make me look like that. But I think
Yeah, yeah,
education
yeah.
education is key because you're going to really put yourself in a box because you're only going to be able to work with one type of clientele, probably a healthy clientele. And as you know, as the longer you get in the industry, the more niche you can be in working with special populations, chronic illnesses, working around different injuries, anatomy, all that stuff, you can
Yeah.
charge whatever you want. So I think the biggest thing I find with trainers, they see it as this high paying job. I could just be the online influencer. Not that you can't, but everybody's gonna have their different route of how they get there, and you don't really know that until you get in. Because I know so many people with 100K, but the 100K doesn't really. They're not monetizing that 100K or whatever the case may be. So you got to figure out like what's your way, and just love this because 80% of trainers quit the training industry within 2 years due to unsustainable schedules and minimum wage pay. So if you don't love this, most of the time you're not even going to get past a year or two, because you're probably not going to make the crazy amount of money you want to make in the first 2 years. Whether you decide social media content, you decide to be a gym owner, you decide to be whatever that may be, a mobile trainer, you have to fall in love and submerge and want to serve people first, because this business is about serving people at point blank period. It's about, I got to care about the client more than they care about me, just to be honest with you. So if you're not in the business to do that, I don't even think you should even look at this business, because it's a long game. Just coming from 12 years in it and just now really seeing that real success. So
Preach, baby, preach. No, yeah, I mean, we've done some even some like blog articles and stuff on like realistic, because I think that's the challenge for a lot of people. You spend time looking up like what's the pay range for a personal trainer, and you find these arbitrary numbers on like salary.com that mean nothing, right? Because let's be honest, they're pulling data from everything from part-time to full-time trainers to all over the board. So it's very hard to make any sense of. So I look at it as almost more of like a time-driven thing. Like the money opportunity is there, but it's very rare, just in my experience. It's very rare for me to find a trainer, even in a great market like South Florida, who's making six figures in less than like 8 to 10 years, right? Just
right,
based upon the
right,
mistakes you have to make getting
right,
there. Yeah, 100%. So I think and the other thing I want to pull out of that for the listeners too is the relationship between like your because I think there's certification and then there's skill set and confidence, and like they all like they can coincide, but they're not one and the same, right? I know far more great trainers long term, like not only they know what they're doing, but they have a great business that don't have degrees
right.
versus many of my counterparts who were in grad school. And it's just a different thing, like you said. So
And
don't
being a
stray away.
leader, and just being a leader, like leading the session. I think one of the biggest things we have to coach up a lot is being a vocal leader, because even if you know what you're doing, a lot of the clients, they're not going to believe you because you don't seem like you believe in yourself. And I think that's been one of the biggest struggles with trainers, besides like, them looking good. They don't know how to like lead a session and make people feel like they can want to run through a wall, because they're really educating. They're not just trying to run them through a session. And last thing, I'll probably join on to the whole training piece. If you're a young trainer, really submerge yourself into nutrition, because that's going to up your value. You can double your price. So whether that's saying you get a degree or like a really extensive certification, submerge into nutrition more than even the training, because that's what's going to give your people the life-changing results also. Something that I thought was really important to mention.
Love that. And maybe tagging on to, we talked about maybe some of the biggest misconception on like how much they're going to make right away and what that's going to look like, which I think is great because I totally agree. I think there's a big disconnect. And I think that's actually why the statistics are so bad, because the expectations don't meet the reality, and that the industry needs to do a better job of like at least explaining that expectation better. But also, so aside from misconception, then once they get in, what do you think? What's the biggest mistake that they're making? Are they putting too much time into social media? Are they trying to go into private training too soon? Are they charging too little? Too like, what do you think if you had to identify, with all the coaches you guys are now working with, what's maybe the one most common biggest mistake that you see that if they could just fix that, like, they could make some big improvements?
Um, I mean, from all the books I've read, the only thing that matters is that you have tons of clients. So sales. Because I think like everything is like, okay, yes, education is important, but sometimes people go overkill on education, or the social media is like overkill. Go out there and get people training with you. Charge a reasonable rate in the beginning. You can always elevate your price once you're in demand. It's no different than a supply chain. Once you're so booked where people are begging to train with you because you have all these before and afters, you can charge whatever you want. I think a lot of these trainers, they try to charge so much and they wonder why they can't stay in the industry, because they're trying to skip the legwork of like really building that book and really like putting the time in. Oh, I need to be charging 150, 250 a session because I got a six pack. And I'm like, that's just not how it works. Like, how many people have you been able to like give a six pack. That is what you're being judged on, you know. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things I would say is as far as a misconception of like what you feel like your time is worth when you're just starting out in the industry, you know?
Love that. I feel like it's the same thing, right? Someone's a great quarterback doesn't mean they're going to be a good coach, right?
Right.
I think it's that misconception. Speaking of which, like with you, with your background and your life in athletics and training, um, did you see yourself getting into training? Like, was there another route? I'm just always interested because I find the people that are successful in fitness and training, like, especially from a business standpoint, or just with people that like there's other skill sets, right? Like obviously, fitness, but at any stage, it's just kind of my random question for you. At any stage, did you see yourself getting into anything else, or was it fitness like was kind of always on the forefront of your mind?
Fitness was always at the forefront of my mind. Besides, I ended up playing football.
Yep.
I thought I was going to be a professional basketball player, and I kind of stopped growing, so that kind of went out the window.
Like the height's not there. Yeah.
But besides that, something I really had a true passion for, and I actually almost went to college for it. Very close to my family, like I'm a very family oriented person, and my grandparents grew up in my grandparents, and my mother, and I grew up in my grandmother's restaurant, and I wanted to be a chef. I wanted to open a restaurant until I started working at a restaurant every summer when I moved to New York from to Florida, and then when I would go back and help my grandparents, and I'm like, oh, this is not it. Like
That's a
I'm
tough
over
life.
here. Yeah, this is a tough life. This is a tough business, you know. I still love to cook to this day. Like I'm very passionate about food. You don't get this big without eating, but um, if I did anything else, definitely food is love, and anything I've been around, that's how I get friends together. That's how I get family together, and like food is kind of love in the Caribbean, the Caribbean family with the background I have. So that would be something when it's not about money, and I have the generational wealth. I probably will be opening something in South Florida where
Love that.
it's a 24/7 or like even just a midnight to 6 of the craziest exotic foods you can get. Your lobster rolls and all the concoctions I do, lamb chops at night, whatever the case may be, where everything's closed. So
I love
yeah,
it, man. I love it. Well, you know what? And the reason I asked that too is because I think there's and I know for me, I was that exercise science major, like the master's degree, like just love the science and training side of things. And that was
right.
like my whole life. Right. And then you get into training people and like they want to train with someone who cares about other things too, right? Like you're a real person they can connect and
Of
relate
course.
with, you know.
That's why they stay
Um,
with you. They don't stay
but
with you because all of what you know. They stay because how you make them feel. So
yeah. Yeah, I like that. And I got hey, I know who I'm reaching out to for my recipes now.
oh,
Kashawn.
I got you. I got you. So I got some good recipes. Trust me.
I like that. Yeah, and that's so I feel like for any of you guys who are listening, I think commonly the conversations I get to have people as they're getting into the industry is, again, they may be coming from other things. Is like I think your other skill sets, your other passions, those can be your like your little separators and your superpowers. Obviously, you have your training, your niches, all these things that are going to make you who you are. But then, like you said, people buy you, right? They buy you. They want to be around you, and do those things. So, what do people need to hear who might want to go beyond training clients? Again, the primary, let's call it the primary listener. Most of the people who are listening to this podcast are like trying to still figure out the training piece, right? Or at least they're trying to get busy enough to say, "Wow, okay, this is my long term." But they might be a couple years in, and maybe they have aspirations of doing more than just training clients because there's lots of opportunities. Training clients can lead to a lot of things.
Right.
What do you think that group of people who might have the aspiration of like building a good training business that leads to something else, even if they don't know what it is, what do
Right.
they need to hear? What do they need to hear from you?
I would say keep educating yourself. I feel like I've learned more now out of school than I ever just continue to be curious. I think it's not like a special thing. It's like be curious, whether it's about training, other things that may spark something you talk to a client about. Don't limit yourself on the skill sets you have now because as you grow and you continue to learn and you continue to read these books, at the end of the day, everybody has done something you may want to do. Somebody has already made the mistake. So why not go through the cheat codes and continue to learn? Like what's changed for me, I think the biggest mindset shift that has changed for me is being more curious. I won't call myself a jock, but all I cared about was taking care of my body, being a professional athlete, making sure I ate, making sure my family was good, just being a good person. But out of that realm, I wasn't like really so curious. I was like, what else matters, right? Um, but as you get older and you know, you aspire to do more, I think the biggest thing is, besides reading and submerging content, like your favorite influencer like Joe, just going on YouTube and just submerging his content and just listening to just different ideas, that you'll be so surprised, like just what you spark, right? And meditate. I think meditating and just really like centering your thoughts every day and like just being more of a visionary and affirming things. Like I'm very big on like routine and habits and waking up and getting my 10 pages, getting my prayer in, um, you know, getting like my spiritual, whatever spirituality is for you, making sure you're taking care of yourself and learn something new every day. Like it doesn't have to be something that you need to know or you're trying to make money off of, but you learning something every day is a compound habit of you figuring out something that you never would have even thought that you wanted to get into. Just just point blank period, you know. So I think curiosity is the key to innovation. So
Love that. Love that, man. Curiosity. I'm going to take that one with me too. So I have two more questions for you. Maybe a little bit more, let's say training, tactical related, those kinds of things. I got on, I spent plenty of time last couple of days, like going back through some of your social media, especially on some of your Instagram. And, obviously with you guys helping coaches and trainers, you have a certain lens in which you're talking to coaches. But also I noticed, especially like more recently, quite a few like content pieces in context to trainers having like better systems, things like having a CRM, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, Knowing, like we've talked about, this audience of trainers everywhere from like, I'm thinking about getting into training. I just got certified up to 5 years. When do systems start to matter the most? And on top of that, as you are getting started as a new trainer, you're trying to build your business. What couple of systems matter most?
First of all, your calendar. I was one of those trainers who were just like, my intake form was a piece of paper. I didn't make it an
Yeah,
e-form.
here
So
you
you're
go.
trying to like, yeah, exactly. Trying to put it in a folder. Like you're moving so fast. And if you're still like hands-on in your business, you're gonna lose people because the biggest thing is we talk about care, it's attention to detail, right? So you're trying to track progress, right? You're trying to make sure you have to reschedule. Getting a booking system, even besides your personal calendar, have some type of booking system. If you don't have one, use fitness at your door. But but just like in general,
Check the link in the description.
yes, yes. So like, you know, a calendar, um, maybe somewhere like some type of CRM. I mean, you don't have to get a CRM right away, but honestly, if you want to build off of a firm foundation, get a simple CRM. There's millions of them. You got Pipedrive, you got um I wouldn't say Salesforce and HubSpot. Those are like a little bit more advanced, but
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
just just something that you can say like, "Hey, I met this person, right? Where did I meet him?" Because everything's about data, right? You want to do more of things that you're seeing success from. So you want to be able to say, "Hey, I met this person. Where did I meet him? I need to go to this place more because I'm meeting clients, obviously." So anything you uh anything you pay attention to is what you attract, right? So I meet him. What's the next step? I follow up with him. What's the next step? I get an intake form from him. What's the next step? We get them in person for them to train with me. And then when you're meeting all these different people, right? It where our mind isn't built to just like keep all this stuff in our head. So if you're not being organized and whatever organization looks like for you, you're not going to be able to successfully grow your business or successfully be profitable. Besides a booking system, a payment system. Stop like I mean Zelle is cool and all that stuff, but like be organized how you taking money. Knowing like, are you profitable or are you just doing this for fun and you just wasting gas, right? Um, you're gonna want to buy a house one day. Start showing your money. Like I know we all want to hide our money as trainers. It's like it's a very fast-paced business.
Don't let Uncle Sam know.
Right. And Uncle Sam's not going to give you a credit card or
Yeah,
or you're
right.
not going to be able to like ever, build something for yourself. So just simple things like a tracking system where you can, track progress, keep intake forms, a CRM where you can keep contacts, and just where you can take payments because you need to be able to take money. So if you can at least do those three things and just keep that all in one place, which is kind of what Fitness at Your Door does for you again, that's a good start. That is a great start for you. Just to
Yeah,
keep it super simple.
love that. Yeah,
Right.
and I
PayPal,
mean,
all that stuff. Yeah.
obviously, like whatever. I don't. I wasn't even certified when I started training. Right. I was uncertified, taking cash,
Yeah.
chasing down checks. Gosh, who even
Right.
writes checks anymore? Someone tries to pay me in a
Right.
check, I'm gonna smack it. Um, I'm like, no,
Right.
give me a credit card so we can
Right.
just do this consistently.
Right. Put it on
Um,
file.
yeah. But
Subscription based. Yes. Very good point.
yeah, love
Make
that.
sure you
Awesome.
get commitments from your people.
That's it, man. I mean, and you know what? Everyone's gonna make mistakes in the beginning, but I think as some of you guys are listening and you're trying to get to that place where things are consistent, these systems definitely matter. Like that's the reason I asked it because I'm like, man, I gotta have him talk about this because I think most coaches and trainers are relatively like either they claim to be unorganized or naturally unorganized, or they just don't know, right? The industry doesn't do a
Right.
great job of teaching us this stuff.
Of course.
So love that. Yeah, systems. And if you guys want more insight, follow my man Kashawn on Instagram because he's got some good content on some of this stuff. And there are a lot of great resources out there for little solopreneurs. Obviously, if you guys are at a gym and location, hopefully they have these systems. But I've also even found at some of those places, sometimes you got to build your own systems, right? Like you may have to have your own, you got to build your own calendar outside of the normal system so you can be tracking what's going on with clients as well. So just being on top of that. All right, cool. So we talked a little bit of systems. My last question for you, and I'm gonna let you get back to your life, is more so about the future of the industry, right? I mean, obviously, Chat GPT, artificial intelligence, like the robots are here, right? And they're among us. You might be one. I don't know. But in online training and all the trends, like where do you think, especially for, because I would say the bulk of our base of listeners are like probably primarily in person. Maybe they want to get into online, but they're not
Right.
there yet, or they're dabbling a little bit too. So where do you feel like the industry is going? And what do trainers need to be focused on for the future of the industry?
Well, the industry is definitely going tech. I think they will never truly replace us because you can't replace energy in critiquing form. Like you could go sit there and have a mirror and a Peloton that sits there and becomes a clothes rack, all that stuff. Like it's not that you're not going to use that sometimes, but you can't replace energy of people teaching and motivating and coaching and all that stuff. And just the expertise you've had over your experience of time of all the different clients that you have transformed their lives and how you're putting those transformations in that person who have are experiencing the same situation or goal they're trying to hit. When you say tech, Chat GPT, all these like kind of AI foundations, embrace it. Don't stray away from it. Just do what you do best and continue to educate yourself so you can never become replaceable, right? But use these systems to make your job easier and be able to add more value to your clients. So when you're talking about Chat GPT and all these other forms, help it use your programming. Put your information in and help it program for you a little bit so it makes it easier for you to send, home workouts for your clients and things of that sort. I think sometimes we get scared of what the future holds, but if it's gonna go there anyway, you have to embrace it, right? So I think a lot of training will continue to become more data driven. I think from your smartwatches to I don't even know what they're gonna do next of like all the measurements they're gonna be able to take, like how much
Yeah.
you're sweating, like it's just gonna just it's gonna no, seriously,
Yeah.
it's just gonna get better and better. So how do you leverage that with what you're already doing, using your personality and your skill set and combining that to make the ultimate experience for your client? Because at the end of the day, there's I think it's about 2 to 3 things your client wants. They want you to show up on time. They want you to be present. They want you to to know that what they're doing is working. And how do you do that when you, besides data of being able to show them like, hey, this is where you started, this is where you are, and this is what we finished doing. And yeah, they just want to know that you're the best in your craft and that you're providing the value that they came here for. If you're doing all those things and you're doing your due diligence of showing them, the program design, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it, a client will never leave you. There really be no reason if they can afford it.
I love it, Kashawn. And Kashawn, for people who want to connect more with you, right, after hearing you talk and understanding like what you're doing right now and how you're impacting the industry with, fitness at your door, where are you most active, as far as like social media? Where can people best connect with and learn from you?
Um, right now I'm on all social media platforms. Every different social media has a different purpose of as far as like the type of content I'm posting. So LinkedIn is more corporate wellness because we're working more B2B
Yep.
with those companies and HOAs. Instagram, I just opened up another page. The Kashawn Fraser page, the Fitness at Your Door page, is kind of talking about my trainers, talking about what we do for clients. The Trainer Secrets is more of like the secrets that I learned and I'm learning over the time to excel your personal business, or if you want to join our network to work with us to reach more people. And Facebook is more family oriented because that's where the moms are and everybody
Yeah.
else. But
Love that.
if you go on any of our platforms, you're gonna see something of value, whether it's workout content, so you know how to work out, whether it's trainer content for you, where you can learn a lot of things from it. And yeah, just stay tuned, And and before we hop off, whoever's watching this, we are in a family and friends round. So if you look us up and you see see the next generation of fitness, because we're really focusing on being an AI driven platform where we kind of integrate trainers in different staffing solutions from HOA, corporate, gym, or home to home. I'm interested to have a conversation.
I
So
love that. I love that.
yeah,
I'm gonna make sure that everyone listening has links to everywhere that you are, as well as how to reach out to you.
right.
Kashawn, I appreciate having you on, man, and I really look forward to. I have no doubt, as we continue on with this podcast, I look forward to having you back on here in the next couple of years and hear even
Cool.
more about everything that you're doing to grow the industry and help coaches and trainers. So I appreciate you, brother.